Tamachika attempted to rouse Yagiri from his slumber as he dreamt of Asaka-san. Upon waking, Yagiri inquired if they had reached their destination. Tamachika chastised him for dozing off during a commotion. Confused, Yagiri looked around, only for a massive wyvern to suddenly attack their bus. In a swift move, Yagiri hurled a microphone at the wyvern, which had impaled a boy. The creature then targeted Yagiri and Tamachika. As the wyvern lunged, Tamachika embraced Yagiri. Reacting instinctively, Yagiri unleashed his instant death magic, defeating the wyvern and saving them both. Tamachika, bewildered, asked what was happening, but Yagiri, equally puzzled, merely resumed playing his game. Annoyed, Tamachika couldn't understand how Yagiri could play at such a moment. Tamachika inquired of Yagiri how they might escape their current predicament, but cautioned that safety was not assured. She admired Yagiri's calm and composed demeanor but implored him not to speak in such a manner while gaming. Yagiri, turning off his game, asked Tamachika if she was now content. He then instructed her to recount what had transpired. As they rode a bus on a field trip, they suddenly found themselves in a tunnel. Emerging on the other side, they discovered a sunny meadow. Tamachika queried Mikachi about this strange occurrence, and before them appeared Sage Shin, introducing herself. When a man attempted to challenge Shin, she swiftly ended him with her magical powers. Shin warned them to focus solely on her, assuring that she harbored no direct ill will towards them. However, she cautioned that if provoked, she couldn't guarantee her actions. Shin's attack power was an astonishing 530,000. She also dispatched the bus driver with her magic, as he had made the mistake of jesting with her. The bus was unusually quiet until Shin changed everything. She bestowed upon them an ice sky, summoning them as prospective sages. In their world, sages ruled, and replenishing their numbers was essential. Shinan then reduced the number of people on the bus, leaving Tamachika shocked. She couldn't understand why she wasn't glowing like the others. Shinan then activated a system called Battle Song within them, with the logo image from the license displayed in their field of vision. Tamachika, confused, asked Mikachi if she saw something strange. Mikachi noticed unfamiliar writing in front of her. The system was referred to as a gift in this world, and Shin encouraged Mikachi to utilize it to become a sage within 1 month. However, Tamachika expressed her inability to see the logo or anything else. Shin explained that not everyone was suited for it and warned Tamachika to accept her fate or be turned into livestock. Drained of all her magic, Mikachi's first mission was to benign in 1 hour, leaving Tamachika bewildered. As Mikachi started to comprehend the mission, she learned that a dragon was approaching to attack. General Suguru approached the group on the bus, explaining that they had no choice but to complete the mission together. He requested everyone's status, highlighting the need for their diverse abilities to complement each other. Tamachika, Shinazaki, Kuryu, and Takatu were the only ones not glowing, with Kuryu questioning why Takatu was sleeping at such a critical moment. Tamachika couldn't recall Takatu doing much besides sleeping. As the others exited the bus in silence, Kuryu prepared to follow, but Tamachika began to wake Takatu. Shinazaki suggested leaving him be since he enjoyed sleeping, but General Suguru intervened, instructing them to stay on the bus and not join the others. Kuryu, frustrated, demanded to know why they were being excluded. General Suguru explained that those without abilities, despite enhanced physicality at level 1, would be burdensome. A sun used her charm to enhance their appearance, making them more attractive, with only 1 dragon in the area. The plan was for the others to act as decoys while the rest safely reached the city. Tamachika questioned if everyone agreed with this plan, knowing Mikachi would likely object. Despite her reservations, she ultimately consented, and General Suguru exited the bus, locking the others inside. Suddenly, a dragon appeared, shaking everything around them. Tamachika wondered how Yagiri could still be peacefully sleeping through it all. When Yagiri finally woke up, he was concerned about how to charge his gaming device in this new world. Tamachika was annoyed by his priorities, especially since, according to Yazaki, there was only 1 dragon, and it had been defeated, making it safe outside. Tamachika asked Takatu if he had done something to defeat the dragon. They both decided to jump out of the bus window. Their options were a hill, a city, or a forest. Yagiri suggested skipping the forest, but Tamachika noticed something flying towards them. It was Higashida, Fukuhara, and Hanakawa. Yagiri asked if he should kill them, but Tamachika questioned if his first instinct upon seeing classmates flying should be murder. Yagiri felt leaving them behind was something a killer would do and that they might be hostile. As they prepared to land, they realized the dragon was dead, saving them trouble. They were surprised to see Tamachika alive, as they had planned to turn her into a zombie. Tamachika then understood why they couldn't be friends with those guys. Higashida attempted to unleash his fireball power at Tamachika. Tamachika, puzzled by his actions, wondered why he would do such a thing. Yagiri, impressed by Tamachika's boldness, decided to intervene and facilitate a conversation. He then pointed at Higashida and commanded him to die, causing him to collapse and perish immediately. Yagiri ordered the others not to move. When Fukuhara tried to approach Higashida, Yagiri commanded him to die as well, and he too fell lifeless. Yagiri instructed Hanakawa not to move unless he wanted to meet the same fate, and then proceeded to explain his ability: instant death to any target he desired. He asked Hanakawa to check if the others were truly deceased. But Hanakawa, afraid to move, hesitated. Yagiri assured him that he wouldn't harm him, so Hanakawa attempted to heal them, but to no avail. Yagiri found Hanakawa's reluctance frustrating, as it could lead to more conflict. He explained that he used his power because they were attacked. Hanakawa, intimidated by Yagiri's ability, surrendered and offered to be Tomochika's servant, but Tomochika transferred him to Yagiri, who promised not to harm him. Yagiri instructed Hanakawa to wait in the nearby forest filled with magical beasts, warning him not to reveal anything about them and to leave behind his valuables, as he might betray them. Tomochika questioned why Yagiri was protecting her, to which he replied that he had chosen to do so. Tomochika insisted there must be a reason for his choice, prompting Yagiri to recall an incident where Tomochika's touch had surprised him. This angered Tomochika. News reached Sage Shin about the prospective sages, with the first mission cleared but resulting in 4 fatalities. 2 unskilled individuals and 2 S-ranked individuals died suddenly and without warning. Sage Shin allowed Yuichi to act as he saw fit. Tomochika and Yagiri arrived at a town, but they were already closing the gate. Tomochika quilt dragged Yagiri so they could enter the town before they closed the gate. On getting there, the gatekeeper closed the gate and didn't allow them in. They sat at the corner of the gate entrance. They met with Masayuki, and Tomochika was happy she met someone who could speak their language. Yagiri told him they got separated from the other group, and that was why they came here after them. Masayuki told them there was an entrance fee for this, but they got orders from above not to interfere with sage candidates, and unfortunately, he didn't allow them in. He said he could only allow Tomochika in, but she refused, and quickly dragged Yagiri from there. Because she was afraid Yagiri was going to kill Masayuki, Yagiri told Tomochika not to make him feel homicidal manic. Tomochika, shocked by the fact that Yagiri does not realize that was what exactly he was. Mairyu was amazed to see that the place looked straight out of a fantasy story, and there were even people who looked like beastkin. She saw Tomochika and Yagiri and asked if they were both sage candidates. She guessed they were new to the parts. She asked them if there is any help she could render for them, and she promised to do it for free. Yagiri asked her how that could be of benefit to her. Her goal was actually to get cozy with male sage candidates, but she promised not to lay her hands on a guy who already has a girlfriend. Tomochika quickly told her that she was not Yagiri's girlfriend. Tomochika wanted to take the sights before it got too dark, so they asked Mairyu to lead them. Tomochika got to change her clothes and she felt relieved. Suddenly, they saw a group of people surrounding them at their back and in their front. They wanted to rob them and take away everything they had. But what they wanted was the sage candidates who lacked any ability. Yagiri then decided to kill them. Tomochika tried to explain to Mairyu that she could not defeat Yagiri because he was stupidly overpowered. For a start, Yagiri killed everyone behind him, and immediately they collapsed and died. He then killed one of the robbers halfway. He paralyzed one right ankle, another one left arm. Yagiri was trying to see if he could hold back from fully killing them. He damaged another one eyes. Yagiri realized killing off single parts of their body wasn't very efficient. Mairyu and one other robber saw this and tried running away. He commanded them to die, but it wasn't effective immediately. Just when they thought they could escape his power, they died at the point of escaping. Some guards stopped Yagiri and Tomochika. The captain of the guard asked Yagiri what he did to the people lying down on the floor. She tried to attack Yagiri, but one of her guards told her that his skills indicated that Tomochika and Yagiri didn't have the sage gift, and it was hard to imagine they were the one responsible for the death of the robbers. The guard left them, and the guy apologized to both of them to forgive their captain. Yagiri asked the guy to show them a place where they could spend their night. They got to a big hotel where they could spend their night, and Tomochika was so amazed to see how big the building was. Yagiri paid for 2 rooms and they went separately to their rooms. Tomochika was amazed to see how big her room was. Then she felt bad for staying separately without Yagiri for the first time. Suddenly, Tomochika saw the spirit of her big sister Danara. Wihao was the wife of the Danara school founder's son, who served as a patron saint of the Danara school, and was responsible for the restoration of its dynasty. She was the spirit of Tomochika's ancestors who have come to protect her as her guardian angel. Tomochika scolded her for being a little late and why she didn't show up earlier. She didn't show up because of Yagiri's power, and Tomochika wondered if Yagiri's power could also have an effect on spirits like her. Danara told Tomochika to inform Yagiri about her existence. Tomochika asked Danara how she could be of help to her. Danara was a spirit of the dead, and she was to protect Tomochika from supernatural powers because she was the successor of the Danara school of archery and the mixed martial arts that existed since the Heian period. Danara's desire was for Tomochika to the world that she originally came from. Tomochika went to meet Yagiri the next morning. Feeling so complicated, she asked Yagiri if they were leaving to chase after everyone else. The concierge of the hotel where they spent their night introduced herself to them as Celestina. Yagiri was the one who asked Celestina for help yesterday, so she has been helping them figure out where their classmates were and what route they have been taking. Celestina also helped them prepare some items to help them with translating and hiding their stats. She even made a charger for a Yagiri gaming device. Celestina gave them the ticket for the train to the royal capital. Yagiri collected the ticket and gave Celestina some property in exchange for the help she rendered to them. Tomochika and Yagiri were on a train. Yagiri was playing his game while Tomochika was stuck cracking the battery charger, while half buried in the plump stomach of a ghost. Tomochika and Yagiri were discussing, and all of a sudden, Yagiri pushed Tomochika to the ground to escape a sudden attack. One of the robbers Yagiri damaged his eyes and was taken to the Sage Kingdom. Sage Lane replaced his eyes with a new one and tried to heal him, but it wasn't working. So then she bit him on his neck. Lane a vampire, and her class is Origin Blood, the highest rank of undead. And for those who are turned vampire by Lane's bite, direct bite are guaranteed a huge boost in physical strength and prowess. But Lane's intention of turning him into her next of kin didn't work. Suddenly, everywhere was shaking, and there was a reflection of light. A message was passed to the passengers on the train that a sage was engaged with an aggressor. Yagiri assumed they were not aiming at him and Tomochika intentionally. A robot appeared which happened to be the aggressor, and a sage also appeared. The sage and the aggressor attacked each other. Tomochika told Yagiri to kill them but refused, and the rest of the passengers ran away from the aggressor. Sage Santaru told Yagiri and Tomochika not to run away. He tried to attack them. When he came to attack Lane and her people, he felt all the sage should be wiped out, and he activated his holy sword Carter to attack them. Sage Santaru was sad. He felt they were not part of his fight and shouldn't have killed the sages. He then scolded Yagiri and Tomochika to bow in order to express their gratitude whenever they saw a sage. Then Yagiri killed him, and instantly he collapsed and died. The aggressor communicated with Tomochika and Yagiri. Lane escaped Annie's attack after he had attacked the sages because Lanny was an immortal. She picked Annie up and threw him away. Lanny requested that Yagiri be tracked down. The aggressor promised Yagiri and Tomochika to do anything within his power for them, so they requested that the robot take them back to the world they came from, but unfortunately, he couldn't do so. Yagiri then asked Robot to give them advice after they had found the sages so that he could consider them as even. Yagiri asked Tomochika if there was anything she would want to request from Robot. The sages found out that Sage Santaru was dead. The sage Sion and Lanny had a discussion, and they wondered how Yagiri and Tomochika could defeat a sage. They realized that they possessed a strange magic of instant death. Lanny ordered Masayuki to take the immortal body and head to Hanabusa. Yagiri was tired and needed to rest. Yagiri and Tomochika both sat under the tree discussing when Danara appeared to them and gave Tomochika the item she got from Robot, which could freely change its form. Tomochika wondered how she got it, though Danara had it camouflaged under Tomochika's underwear. Tomochika scolded her for using a futuristic sci-fi weapon like it was normal. Tomochika and Yagiri arrived at the city of Hanabusa. Tomochika suggested that Yagiri hone his skills, but Yagiri felt there was no need, as he effortlessly dispatched enemies. While they talked, Yagiri sensed approaching demons and thieves. Tomochika wondered if Yagiri was weary of using his power and if it had a limited number of uses. Fortunately, Yagiri's power had no such limit. Continuing their journey, Yagiri located the high-class hotel Celestina had mentioned, which would serve as their base for a while. Inside the hotel, they unexpectedly encountered Takabena. Tomochika was surprised to see him, as she had thought they were all still in the primeval forest. However, Takabana had been moving separately from them, believing there was no point in working with those who leveled up inefficiently. Erika, who was with them, angrily asked Takabana about Tomochika. Takabana revealed that Tomochika was his classmate. Tomochika was curious about the girls surrounding Takabana. They were his bodyguards, specially chosen from among all his servants. The girls introduced themselves to Tomochika and Yagiri. Yagiri observed how Takabena commanded the girls and was impressed. While Yagiri knew Takabena was one of the students left behind with them, he didn't understand the extent of the power Takabana had acquired to be so confident. Tomochika knew Takabana had always been popular with girls and had a cocky attitude. Takabana then asked Tomochika to be his mistress, but knowing she wouldn't leave Yagiri, he decided to take Yagiri as his servant instead. Takabana was a dominant figure, the strongest in their class, capable of controlling everything. Tomochika was still amazed, realizing that Takabana hadn't had much training, as all their classmates were still training in the forest. Takabana recounted the tale of his arrival at the victory party, following the completion of his initial mission. Consultant Utori sought him out to offer assistance with his predicament, aware that Takabana, as a dominator, faced avoidance from others and had no time for disputes among peers. Utori advised him to acquire a significant number of weak level 1 servants. If these servants emerged victorious in battle, the weakest enemies could become Takabana's servants, and their experiences would become his own. Initially puzzled by Utori's advice, Takabana eventually agreed, thus increasing his power. Yagiri considered the idea that Tomochika might be safer with Takabana than with him if she joined his forces, but Tomochika took offense at the suggestion, prompting Yagiri to apologize. Meanwhile, Lane prepared to confront the dark aggressor and stood a chance against him. Tomochika wondered how long they would remain in the hotel, and her guardian angel, Danara, informed her that it would likely be until Yagiri woke up. Suddenly, chaos erupted in the city, with everyone running for their lives. Masayuki, a follower of Sage Lane, had ordered the destruction of the city. Tomochika was in her hotel room, discussing with Danara. She picked up the hotel phone to call Yagiri, but he was fast asleep, dreaming about how his dog would wake him up at home. He woke up to answer Tomochika's call and told her he would be on his way to her place. While heading to Tomochika's room, he saw Erika trying to enter. He commanded her to leave, but she slumped to the floor and died. Yagiri knocked at Tomochika's door and told her about the incident. He then called the hotel attendant to report a woman who had collapsed in the 5th floor hallway. Yagiri found it strange that he hadn't noticed the body earlier. Takabana noticed that Erika's profile had disappeared from his system. Tomochika was angry and questioned why Yagiri had killed Erika. A monster attacked Takabana, but he defeated it and formed a contract with it, making it his servant. He tried to locate Erika in his system but couldn't find anything, as she had been attacked from behind. The group found it hard to believe that Erika was dead. One of the bodyguards speculated that she might have been trying to please Takabana by bringing Tomochika to him, or maybe she was attempting to eliminate Tomochika. Takabana wondered why she would try to get rid of Tomochika without her master's orders. The attacker targeted Sage Lane but struggled to defeat her due to her rapid regeneration and ability to disintegrate upon contact. Tomochika and Yagiri were hurrying to leave the hotel when Riza intercepted them, under orders from Takabana to bring Tomochika. She requested Tomochika to accompany her quietly. Yagiri shattered the ice encasing them, perplexing Riza as her magic failed. Yagiri destroyed her wand, questioning if she could still use magic without it, despite being a wand master unable to wield magic without her wand. A doll suddenly attacked Riza, whom she defeated, but she was then attacked by Yagiri and fell. More dolls emerged to assail Tomochika and Yagiri, but Yagiri dispatched them. A young girl, saddened by her destroyed dolls, was frightened when Tomochika and Yagiri approached her. Takabana learned of Riza's death at Yagiri's hands. Aware of his ability to kill with a thought, he sent a swarm of cockroaches to attack Tomochika and Yagiri, who was terrified. Tomochika realized Takabana sent the cockroaches, knowing they couldn't be killed. Yagiri desired to kill Takabana from afar, causing Takabana to collapse and die. Yagiri couldn't kill the cockroaches but believed they would leave after Takabana's death. Tomochika was upset with Yagiri for killing Takabana, though she understood it was necessary. A bodyguard tried unsuccessfully to revive Takabana, while another woman felt liberated and decided to leave. As she descended the stairs, she noticed an odd reflection of light and investigated, encountering the dark aggressor, Sage Lani. Lani charmed and bit her, initiating her as a follower and extracting information from her. Yagiri and Tomochika thought of how to head back to the royal capital, and suddenly they both heard noise from the city. It was Masayuki who ordered zombies to attack the people in the city. The city was under attack by zombies, and it seemed unlikely that Yagiri could save it. Ryuta, the city's general, confronted Masayuki, who was causing chaos under Sage Lane's orders. Ryuta demanded that Masayuki order the undead to leave the city. Masayuki, acting under Lane's law, asked Ryuta to hand over the city's key. Masayuki then froze the zombies, announcing that he was searching for Yagiri and Tomochika, ordering the city's residents to bring them to the central plaza within an hour, dead or alive. Otherwise, the zombies would resume their attack. Ryuta, angered by Masayuki's actions, challenged him for threatening the city's people. Meanwhile, residents began searching for Yagiri and Tomochika. Yagiri realized they were being hunted for killing a sage, and, when confronted by some individuals, defended himself by killing one and causing the others to flee. Yagiri decided to negotiate directly with Masayuki at the central plaza and headed there with Tomochika. Masayuki was astonished to see them arrive unaccompanied, wondering if they intended to sacrifice themselves for the townspeople, given the choice he had presented them. Yagiri confronted him, expressing a desire to board a train to the royal capital and requesting Masayuki to remove the city barrier so they could access the station. Masayuki was both amazed and incensed by Yagiri's audacity, recognizing that Yagiri was in no position to make such demands. Sensing Masayuki's need for something in return, Yagiri proposed a deal to spare Masayuki's life, despite knowing he was a despicable person. Enraged, Masayuki commanded his immortal corpse, an army of the dead, to attack Yagiri, believing them to be invincible. However, Yagiri easily commanded the undead to perish, causing them all to collapse lifelessly. Masayuki was astounded to witness his immortal army's demise. Ryuta quickly revealed to Yagiri that he was the federal lord governing the area. He pleaded with Yagiri not to harm him, explaining he knew nothing about the incident. Meanwhile, Masayuki was still baffled by how Yagiri managed to kill the immortal corpse. Yagiri clarified that they weren't truly immortal, as they were still moving, which made his power effective against them. Yagiri then turned to Masayuki, asking him what their next move should be now that all of his allies were dead. It was at this moment that Masayuki realized Yagiri possessed an instant death power. He transformed into a werewolf, but before he could attack, Yagiri commanded him to die, and Masayuki collapsed to the ground. Tamachika criticized Yagiri for not allowing Masayuki to transform first. Ryuta, still pleading for his life, reassured Yagiri that he had no intentions of harming them and wanted to avoid further danger in the city. Yagiri explained to Ryuta that their actions were purely for self-defense. Ryuta then revealed that Masayuki had been ordered by Sage Lane to kill them. This surprised Tamachika, who only knew of Sage Seon, the one who had brought them to this world to become sages. She was confused by the mention of a different sage who wanted them dead. Yagiri sensed an approaching threat from all directions converging on the plaza. Tamachika questioned whether it was another zombie or a real person this time. Ryuta recognized the use of spirit magic and swiftly retrieved the key, only to find it unresponsive. He realized Sage Lane was attempting to manipulate the barrier. A follower of Lane warned that her method of manipulation was dangerous. Takabana was located and killed despite the distance. Lane inquired with Euphemia about Yagiri's threat level, to which Euphemia suggested they avoid further involvement with Yagiri. Sage Lane, realizing Euphemia's concern for her safety upon learning her abilities, concluded that Yagiri was a formidable opponent. Tamachika and Yagiri found themselves surrounded by townspeople who had been manipulated by Lane. Tamachika suggested that Yagiri attack the source of the manipulation before the townspeople could harm them. However, Yagiri hesitated, realizing that this situation was different from Takabana's case, where the link was through his servant. As the townspeople began to attack one by one, Yagiri reluctantly fought back, feeling a deep sorrow for Jayuta, who had to witness ordinary citizens dying before his eyes. Yagiri asked Jayuta to move closer to him, wanting to protect him from the chaos. Despite the violence, Lane continued to manipulate the townspeople, seeing it as the perfect opportunity to enter the city. She duplicated herself in the air, and Yagiri sensed her hostility growing stronger. Suddenly, the dark aggressor appeared in the city, a clear sign that Lane was nearby. The townspeople, spotting the aggressor, fled in fear. However, the airborne copies of Lane had no recollection of Yagiri, so there was no intent to harm. It seemed more like a natural disaster unfolding. Upon noticing the abnormal behavior, Lane ordered its duplicates to rush to the city. As the dark aggressor approached, Yagiri commanded it to cease, effectively halting its advance. Despite Yagiri's efforts, Lane's duplicates descended upon the city, wreaking havoc and targeting both the citizens and Yagiri. In response, Ryuta proposed a counterattack plan. Meanwhile, as they strategized, Yagiri made a bold decision to confront Lane directly. Tamachika chose to accompany him. As the attacks intensified, Danara shielded Yagiri from a fatal blow. Eventually, the onslaught of Lane's replications was quelled, leaving everyone puzzled by the defeat of an immortal vampire. While Lane conversed with Euphemia, Yagiri's powers began to affect her, leading to her realization that her main body in another dimension had perished, resulting in her demise. In her final moments, she appeared to a young girl, passing on her powers to her successor. Ryuta was happy and he appreciated Tamachika for defeating Sage Lane, which has also brought peace to the city. Tamachika went to meet Yagiri and she met him playing games. Then she decided to drive the car and she drove off. Ryoko grew up to be a samurai who could defeat monsters. She went to her tent and realized Carol was inside. She was surprised to see her without her permission before coming in. While she was talking, she saw her smartphone with Carol. Carol quickly returned the phone to her. However, Carol secretly took the phone, but she brought it back because the battery of the phone was going to die. Carol's aim was to Yagiri's monitoring tools, but it was impossible. Tamachika found herself behind the wheel, a task she expected Yagiri to handle. However, he was sound asleep, lost in dreams. Just as Tamachika nearly met with an accident, Yagiri remained peacefully unaware. Later, at the final interview location, Asaka muttered to herself about her job, unknowingly within earshot of Yukiro. As Asaka prepared to leave, Yukiro intervened, pulling her back. They strolled around the hospital, with Yukiro inquiring about the secret base of an evil organization. Asaka, perplexed, asked what he wanted her to do. Yukiro tasked her with dealing with the monsters, leaving her stunned. He then led her to a scripture known for providing solace and guidance to some. As they walked, Asaka questioned their destination. They arrived at Asaka's workplace, Alpha Omega, a place symbolizing the beginning and the end, encompassing everything or eternity. It was the codename for a test subject Asaka would be responsible for. Yukiro revealed that Alpha Omega possessed the ability to eliminate anything, causing fear to grip Asaka. She asked if that was the monster she was meant to handle. Yukiro, confident in her abilities, reminded her of her license and belief in her capability. Despite feeling there were others more suited for such tasks, Asaka found reassurance in Yukiro's conviction that she was perfect for the job. Their journey led them to a point where Yukiro could go no further due to lack of clearance. He handed her a book containing all the instructions she would need and departed. Asaka used her security ID card to unlock the door and found herself in an underground area. After looking through the book she had been given, Asaka called out to see if anyone was there. She noticed a closed door and, upon opening it, found a young boy sitting alone in the room. Surprised to find a child locked underground, Asaka quickly ran to him. The boy pointed at her, causing her to fear for her life, but to her astonishment, a hidden devil in her shadow perished instead. The boy expressed a desire to play, but it was late, so Asaka suggested he play tomorrow. As she reached out to help him up, she introduced herself and asked for his name. He introduced himself as Alpha Omega, which sounded like a code name to Asaka. Feeling hungry, they went to the kitchen, where Asaka prepared food while Alpha Omega took a bath. They ate together, and Asaka asked what his mother called him, then decided to name him Yagiri Takatu, using her last name for some reason. They shook hands and exchanged pleasantries. Yagiri greeted someone in his dream before being abruptly awakened by Tamachika, who informed him they had reached a dead end on a mountain path. Tamachika was amazed at how Yagiri could sleep so soundly in such a precarious location. Exhausted from using a large portion of his power in Hanabusa, Yagiri explained that he needed the rest. Tamachika warned him not to fall asleep again. Yagiri questioned their decision to head to the royal capital, as their main goal was to return to their world. He believed there must be another way to achieve this without going to the capital. Tamachika reversed the bus to begin their journey anew, but as they did, they noticed something behind them, a dragon. The dragon prepared to attack, but Yagiri commanded it to perish. However, more dragons approached, indicating they were in enemy territory. The dragons attacked with fire, prompting Yagiri to command them all to die, causing them to fall lifeless to the ground. Suddenly, a golden thunderbolt appeared before them and attempted to leave, but Yagiri stopped it, threatening to kill the dragon if it did not halt. Suddenly, the dragon halted and transformed into a young girl. Yagiri questioned her motives for attacking them. The girl explained that she wanted to test Yagiri's qualifications to meet the Swordmaster. Confused, Yagiri inquired about the Swordmaster's identity, as their sole aim was to reach the royal capital. The Swordmaster resided in the gorge, and the girl revealed that meeting him would result in a bestowed gift. Despite this, Yagiri remained uninterested, instructing Tamachika to allow them to continue their journey. The girl, however, implored Yagiri to reconsider, explaining that the Swordmaster had requested promising candidates, emphasizing his rivalry with a sage. Intrigued by this revelation, Yagiri considered that the Swordmaster might possess information on returning them to their world. Reluctantly, Aisha led them to the Swordmaster, where they encountered a group of aspiring swordsmen. Yagiri felt that Aisha had intentionally led them into trouble. When the Swordmaster finally arrived, Yagiri, uninterested in their proceedings, asked if he could leave. However, he learned that if anyone attempted to escape, everyone would fail. The confrontation between the candidates escalated, with some aiming to attack Yagiri and Tamachika. Rick intervened to protect them. In a moment of danger, Yagiri perceived a threatening presence and commanded it to perish. To everyone's astonishment, each candidate collapsed and perished. Amidst the chaos, a boy on the brink of death called out for help, pleading with Tamachika to retrieve the rainbow stone. Tamachika swiftly handed him the stone, and miraculously, the boy was completely healed. Grateful, he thanked Tamachika for saving his life. The swordsmen leading the group then changed their location, urging them to follow. Ada implored them to partake in a trial to become Knights of the Divine King, with her as their follower. Despite their lack of information, Yagiri sensed the situation deteriorating. As they journeyed onward, the group took the opportunity to introduce themselves properly to one another. Yagiri inquired about the nature of a Divine King, prompting Rick to explain that a Divine King is responsible for managing the sealed or demonized gods. A millennium ago, the Dark God was sealed by the Divine King's own hands. The offspring of the Dark God now act covertly across the land. Meanwhile, Tamachika conversed with Lionel as they walked. Lionel described an item he had received as an apology, capable of healing serious injuries. He mentioned his poor luck and past misfortunes, including a sacrifice to a mysterious organization. Unexpectedly, a goddess appeared and granted him an apology stone. Tamachika pondered whether fate could be influenced by gods or other entities. Lionel used the apology stones for a gacha pull, receiving 3 stones in one pull and 10 consecutive pulls with 30 stones. He tossed a stone into the air, transforming it into a normal scrub brush, which could be exchanged for a random item. Tamachika checked if Lionel had more stones, but he only received new apology stones based on his daily misfortunes. Suddenly, they were all transported to another world. Danara's spirit urgently advised Tamachika to leave due to an unpleasant miasma ahead. Lionel collapsed, affected by the miasma, while Tamachika, protected by Danara's spirit, felt nothing. The miasma did not affect Rick, but Lionel found it unbearable. Eventually, Lionel gained miasma resistance from his apology stones, and the Misama vanished, leaving Yogiri to wonder where Attila had gone. As they searched for her, Tamachika and the others found themselves in a hall filled with people. The Swordmaster led them to a place where they could see what appeared to be the end of the world. At the center of a solidified monster stood a man in black and a woman in white, seemingly frozen as a sword pierced through them. They were revealed to be the Swordmaster and the Dark God. It was no surprise that this world would one day come to an end, making the role of a Swordmaster seem insignificant. Suddenly, Frederica appeared before them, surprising Lionel, who had been invited here by her. He couldn't believe she had come intending to defeat the Dark God. Frederica informed the Swordmaster that his duties were over and allowed him to live out the rest of his days in peace. With a strike, she attacked the Dark God. Time flowed slowly within the barrier, taking several hundred years before the attack reached the Dark God. Meanwhile, the night selection test began. The goal was to descend from the roof to the first floor of the tower within 24 hours. Teresa asked if she would fail if she jumped from the top of the tower to the ground. Everyone had to accumulate 100 points inside the tower, and several special participants were added. Tamachika asked if Yogiri would be able to beat them with his ability, and he whispered something in her ear. Yogiri and Tamachika rushed to the base of the tower, with Lionel eager to join them. However, Frederica intercepted him, requesting the stone to recharge her magic. After retrieving the stone, she tossed it to the ground. Meanwhile, Rick and his team, who had advanced, were ambushed and slain by monsters to prevent them from triggering any remaining traps. As they pressed forward, Lionel found himself trapped and used his stone to escape. Upon reaching a door, Lionel opened it, only for it to abruptly close behind them, trapping Lionel inside. As he cried out, Rick spotted Teresa in the dimly lit room. He pondered why she, a knight of the Divine King, was participating in this deadly competition. Teresa, having unintentionally caused numerous deaths since losing her rank, saw this as a chance for redemption. Despite Rick's order to retreat, Teresa had set up thin wires all around and attacked him. It became apparent to Tamachika that Teresa was more powerful than Rick, holding back in her attacks. Yogiri then commanded Teresa to meet her end, and she collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Lionel's hand was severed, but he requested that they place the stone in his remaining hand. Yogiri and Tamachika were congratulated for reaching the 98th floor, which was entirely a safe zone. Sleeping accommodations were already prepared, and Yogiri suggested they all take some time to relax, considering they were still in conflict with others. Rick agreed, acknowledging that the trial was more challenging than expected. Lionel asked for a room, while Tamachika and Yogiri also requested one. Unfortunately, there was only one room available. After entering the room, Yogiri changed into nightwear, then jumped onto the bed and fell asleep. Lionel sat in his room, pondering the fact that he had come back from death 15 times. But this time, he had finally succeeded. Suddenly, he received a message offering him 100 apology stones and a guaranteed ultra gacha. Excited, he threw the stones into the air, and as they shimmered, a dressed lady appeared on his bed, only to vanish moments later. Meanwhile, a report reached the Swordmaster indicating several concerning points. The number of deceased did not align with the number of souls in the tower. In a separate incident, Rukido and Hayano's engaged in a fierce battle, culminating in Hayano's beheading Rukido. Hayano's then received a message revealing her next targets, the sage candidates Yogiri and Tamachika. As she prepared to head to the city, a voice stopped her, belonging to Hanakawa, who had survived a dangerous encounter in the Forest of Beasts thanks to Rukido's intervention. Knowing he was now at Hayano's mercy, Hanakawa pleaded to become her servant. Danara woke Tamachika and Yogiri in the morning. Tamachika realized Yogiri was sleeping on her chest. Danara urgently called for Tamachika's help as she was stuck in the wall. She explained they were gathering the spirits and souls of the dead in the tower, causing suction in the wall and floor. Danara screamed for help, and Yogiri rescued her, flying her out of the wall. Danara questioned the purpose of gathering the souls of the deceased. Yogiri warned Tamachika to be prepared, as he would kill anyone who seemed like an enemy. Tamachika felt she had become accustomed to this since the day Yogiri began using his ability to kill as if she had done it herself. Yogiri, feeling hungry since he hadn't eaten before sleeping, and Tamachika were heading out when they encountered Iglesia, the tower's creator. They wished to leave, but a glacier refused, explaining that the tower existed to maintain a barrier concealing the dark god. Yagiri insisted they be allowed to leave, but a glacier refused. As he introduced himself, Yagiri commanded him to die, and a glacier fell to the ground and perished. The mana pathway division at the first barrier around the tower was unstable, and the door closing mechanism malfunctioned, causing the devices to stop one after another. Rika defeated another enemy, earning 100 points, hearing a noise from a nearby location. He investigated and found Lionel close to the fire, not earning any points. Meanwhile, Tomochika and Yagiri reached the stadium, where they witnessed swordsmen fighting each other. Some people were seated at the tower's exit. While the swordsmen continued their battle, Yagiri attempted to talk to them. Masayuki, the leader of the group, asked Yagiri what he wanted. Yagiri inquired about leaving through the exit door, but Masayuki insisted he join the fight, as his pupils were not gaining any points. Yagiri refused, prompting Masayuki to challenge him to a fight against his pupils. Tomochika was angered by Yagiri's interference, but Yagiri commanded Masayuki's pupils to die, causing them to fall to the ground and perish. Enraged, Masayuki attacked Yagiri, who swiftly killed him. Tomochika and Yagiri then proceeded to the exit door. As they left, Theodosia ran after them, demanding to know who had killed her people. Yagiri admitted to the deed, leading Theodosia to apologize for her rude request and to ask for their help. Theodosia approached Tomochika and Yagiri, explaining her quest to find her missing younger sister and her journey to this world upon hearing that her people were trapped. Tomochika offered their help in finding her sister, but Theodosia hesitated, concerned that their assistance might be mistaken for hostility toward the Swordmaster. Yagiri assured her that he was not affiliated with the Swordmaster, but relying solely on his abilities would not be enough. Instead, he suggested they search together. Just as they gathered, Rick and his group appeared. Together, Tomochika and Yagiri arrived at the tower, where the Swordmaster announced that 17 people had passed the trial and was now proclaimed Knights of the Divine King. However, the celebration was short-lived as a servant rushed in to report an emergency. The tower had fallen silent, the first barrier had dissipated, and the second barrier was unstable. The estimated time for the Dark God to breach the second barrier was fluctuating, causing chaos and shaking throughout. As Orgain appeared from the sky, the Swordmaster wasted no time in assigning the first task to the new knights, to defeat Orgain and protect the realm. Yagiri instructed Tomochika and Theodosia to search while they still had time. He believed that defeating Orgain might attract the attention of the Swordmaster, making it easier for others to fight him. After giving the orders, they left the scene. Orgain raised his hands, causing one of the attackers to fall to the ground and die. He vowed to kill everyone present, a promise he swiftly fulfilled by dispatching each attacker. Just as it seemed hopeless, Lute arrived to support Orgain. Frederica attempted to attack Lute but ended up injured. Rick then tried to attack Lute, while Lionel hurriedly searched for his apology stone. He threw it towards a woman named Vanahato, catching the attention of Orgain and Lute, who embraced her. Lionel watched in astonishment at the unexpected turn of events. Yagiri, Tomochika, and Theodosia pressed on in their search. As they journeyed, Theodosia detected a faint magical presence of people. Tomochika inquired if Yagiri could manipulate the barrier, similar to his assistance with Makamako's sight. Yagiri, however, deemed it unnecessary. Suddenly, they found themselves in a different location, where Theodosia shielded them from the barrier's effects. Tomochika sensed a blade-like monster passing through her body, while Theodosia also experienced a sensation. Upon entering an empty room, Theodosia sought signs of life. To her astonishment, she discovered several tanks containing people, her missing kin. Witnessing their plight filled her with sorrow, though the absence of her sister was a meager comfort. Determined to alleviate their suffering, Theodosia shattered the tanks with her sword. She then resolved to confront and defeat the Swordmaster responsible. The deceased Swordmaster, Rick, was posthumously qualified as a Swordmaster by his mentor. He instructed Rick to harness the power stored in the tower and fight on. Lionel, filled with regret, apologized to Vanahato for his actions. He questioned why she was conversing with the enemy. Vanahato revealed that her beloved had vanished and not returned, and he was the one trapped in the barrier. Lionel and even Rick were shocked by the name she mentioned, as it was the name of the feared dark god no one dared to speak of. Despite sending numerous messengers to search the world for him, Vanahato learned that he was sealed away in the barrier. The most heartbreaking part for her was that no matter what she sent, she couldn't defeat the Swordmaster. She considered sending Lionel, who had notoriously bad luck, hoping that her beloved might return and bring about humanity's destruction. Lionel felt guilty. While he knew his luck was bad, he never imagined it was bad enough to lead to the destruction of humanity. Lute told Vanahato that the barrier had mostly disappeared. Vanahato wanted to confirm. She checked through her mirror and realized the creator of the barrier was around a second ago, but it looked like he was dead. If he had around, they would have probably fixed the barrier right away. She also realized that the goddess killer was dead too. She was excited about that. but threatened to kill Lionel. She got the barrier cord and wanted to crush it so the barrier will be gone. She wanted to bring her darling back. So she crushed the barrier and the barrier was gone. Everywhere was quiet for a while and suddenly Theodosia attacked the Swordmaster from behind and she killed him. The blade monster Tamachika saw Underground appeared and stabbed Venahado. Luke quickly healed and came back alive, and Orgain went to rescue Albagarma from the barrier, trying to wake him up. Albagarma is a god who craves living sacrifice, and Orgain decided to dedicate every human to him. All the dragons in the sky agreed to that, and they went ahead to attack the humans for sacrifice to their gods. Yagiri told Tamachika and Theodosia to hold him close, and he commanded all the dragons to die. Instantly they fell off and died. He didn't kill Venahado because she bore no hostility against him. Hayanos appeared at the scene. She asked Rick about Yagiri's whereabouts, and Rick aimed at killing Venahado, which he eventually did. Hayanos eventually found Yagiri. She checked for how powerful he was, and then she realized he was powerful. She wondered why Sion ordered her to kill him. She was so scared of him that she had to apologize and lie to him that she came to deliver Hawakaza to him since they were all schoolmates. Yagiri told her he did want him. Then she told him she was going to dispose of him since he didn't want him. Then she left immediately. Yagiri was surprised Hawakaza could go into the forest with a collar that made him obey Yagiri. Well, Hawakaza did not claim that the effect would last forever. Yagiri and his people were the only ones left in the end. Rick, as the new Swordmaster, wanted to know a lot of things, so he started by talking to Theodosia. Rick asked Yagiri what they could do with his lack of ability. Her Highness told Rick not to ridicule Yagiri because it was his ability he used to kill or defeat the Dark God. She asked Yagiri if she was correct about what she said, and then she felt grateful to him. Rick asked Yagiri what kind of person he was. Yagiri told him he was just an average high school student who was summoned here by a sage. Rick asked him what was the next thing for them to do, just as they had planned. Yagiri told them they were heading to the royal capital. They all decided to go to the royal capital together. Yagiri reminded Theodosia that she was looking for her sister. Theodosia told him her sister's name was Euphemia and she was a half-demon just like her. Tamachika and Yagiri felt the name sounded familiar. Yagiri thought it was a name of a place where they had passed through. Theodosia TD'd them to take her there so she can search for her sister. Then they all agreed to go to the royal capital. Back to the first incident that happened to all the students on the bus before summoned by a sage. The AI unit group brought Asaka to life and converted her to an android as a personality unit. She was being controlled by the AI instruction. Asaka made food for herself and Yagiri. And while he was eating, he told Asaka that the food was gross. Asaka got angry and told him not to call the food a girl cooked for him gross because it sounded unattractive. Yagiri didn't understand what unattractive means. But then Asaka told him to just eat his food and compliment it to be delicious. He did. Asaka went through the next work instruction in her book, which stated that she should provide the minimum in education for Yagiri. She wondered how she was going to do that. After all, she is not getting paid for it. But she didn't have a choice, so she started teaching him at the elementary level. While she was teaching him, she heard the sound of the door. She wondered who was at the door. Yagiri thought it was a courier. By the time Asaka opened the door, she saw a robot who brought groceries for them. Asaka was surprised. She wondered if it was okay for Yagiri to leave his life surrounded by robots. Asaka asked the robot if she could bring anything aside from groceries for her. So she requested that the robot bring an elementary school textbook, a cookbook, a microwave, a rice cooker, a hot water dispenser, and also a TV, and a gaming console and a dog. Asaka and Yagiri went outside to take a view of the atmosphere. Asaka suddenly felt she won't be making it home alive. Asaka met with Yukio. She complained to him the work was too much for her and that she need more people. Yukio asked Asaka if she hate where she works. Then she replied with so much hatred. She wondered why she was locked in that place. Yukio gave her an envelope filled with money. Yukio felt it may look cheap for the job of protecting the world though. Asaka was not moved by the amount she get paid. She felt she was just useless. Yukio told her she could go outside if she want, but Asaka was not aware of that. But she asked Yukio who will take care of Yagiri. Yukio told her robot will take the responsibility of the meal. Then Asaka decided to go on a vacation. She slept and woke up in a room from she remembered she went to the city to have her meal, did some shopping, stayed a night in a super high-class hotel suite. Then she landed in an empty room. She wondered if she was caught. Obviously she was caught, but there was no intention of causing her any harm. It was an organization that disrupt calamities and seal them to prevent the destruction of the world. Just wanted to interrogate her with few words. Robot brought groceries to Yagiri as usual. While she was arranging them in the kitchen, Yagiri came to ask her about Asaka. She then told Yagiri Asaka was on vacation. Yagiri was worried, and he wondered when Asaka would come back to him. He promised his dog he was going to find Asaka. Yagiri went to meet the robot again to ask of Asaka whereabouts. The robot didn't know, but Yagiri insisted to know. Then the robot told him only the researcher could figure Asaka. Yagiri told the robot to take him there. But there was a scientist door they would have to pass through, but can't be opened unless it is controlled from the other side. Suddenly Yagiri showed up on the system, telling them he wants to pass through the door. He had already killed a lot of scientists in the lab. They realized the robot was trying to bring him out and everyone who tried to stop him has been killed. Yagiri insisted they open the door, and the lady in front of the system tried letting him out because she was scared. Yukio then instructed the police who followed him to shoot the lady so as not to let Yukiro-kun out. All of a sudden the police fell off and died. Eventually, Yagiri found his way out. He asked Yukio about Asaka whereabouts. Yukio told him she was out on vacation. He asked if she was going to come back, but unfortunately, Asaka was not coming back because she was taken away by the agency. Yagiri asked if Yukio was not going to help her, but the organization responsible for it has a global reach, so they are powerless against it. Yagiri decided to go help Asaka. Yagiri got to the agency organization, and he killed everyone who tried to stop him. Asaka heard a sound from outside and she felt she had her chance of escaping. By the time the door was opened, the lady pointed a gun at Asaka wanting to kill her. Yagiri got to the scene. He killed the lady and saved Asaka. Asaka came back to the underground. She asked Yukio what would happen concerning what Yagiri did, but there was nothing they could do about it because he was the Alpha Omega. She wondered what would happen to her. She felt like quitting the job. But if she leave Yagiri alone, something worse might happen, so she decided to stay with Yagiri and teach him things that will make him happy. Tamachika was deep in thought about Yagiri, and Danara advised her to spend the rest of her life with Yagiri. Finally, they got to the royal capital, and they were surrounded by securities who asked them to come out of the bus. Tamachika thought they were going to be arrested. Torx, the head of the security guard of the South Central Gate, interrogated them concerning the vehicle they brought to the city. He believed the vehicle belonged to the Immortal Corpse, but they were not an Immortal Corpse. They got the vehicle from Ryuta, the mayor of Hanabusa, and that they were the candidate of Sage San. Torx confirmed to know if truly they were the Sage candidate. Yagiri brought out an amulet and showed it to them. Immediately all the security bowed for Yagiri. Tamachika wondered what it was. Rick gave the amulet to Yagiri to show it wherever they got to in the royal capital, and he gave Tamachika her own. It was an amulet engraved with the royal family crest. Yagiri asked Torx, the head of the security, if he could let them through the royal capital. He agreed to let them in because the amulet tells him two things. The first one was that they are Richard's acquaintance, and the second one was that they are the Knight of Divine King. David, the youngest of the royal family, felt it wasn't necessary to pay any mind to Richard. David challenged Yagiri and Tamachika to show him the sword they received from the Swordmaster as the Knight of the Divine King. Tamachika wondered if Rick was from the royal family. Yagiri didn't remember the sword. David insisted they show him the sword or they should fight. The fight began between David and Tamachika. Tamachika fought with a different style and she defeated David. They finally got their way to the castle while David took them around. They saw a lot of people while going. David explained to them that they were the explorer, the warriors who will challenge the Underworld. Then they departed at that point. Tamachika and Yagiri got to a hall that looked like a school entrance ceremony. They sat down and heard the king of Maniai address the sage candidate. Shinya stood up to challenge the king and the king cut off his 5 fingers. After the king addressed them, he left the hall. Tamachika called for the attention of her classmates in the hall. They turned to her and were all surprised that she was alive. Halaris, the archbishop of the church, welcomed the divine king. Her first thought was just to go home, but the plans changed and she was not sure of what to do. Halaris promised to show her to her home. Halaris took the divine king to his house and they both discussed the sealing key. Tamachika and Yagiri met with the Yazaki. And suddenly, Sora, the famous idol at school, showed up to meet with them. Yazaki told Sora he doubted Tamachika and Yagiri could be trusted, but she didn't support Yazaki's idea. Yagiri was called to a room, where he met with Yukamasa and Yuugo, where they discussed each other's abilities. Suddenly, they heard a knock at the door. It happened to be Fukai. On the other end, Tamachika also met with her classmate girls where they discussed the ability of the 3 Oroge nobles. Suddenly they heard a knock at the door. It happened to be Ryoku and Carol, who wanted to talk to Tamachika about Yagiri. Fukai explains himself to the boys as a death god even when he is told to keep tabs on Yagiri. He is never allowed to go close or look him directly in the eye. He plugs out his eye, which is used to detect the supernatural. However, he lost his power when he got to Yagiri's place. After all he has told them, he stood up and left. Tamachika gathered Yagiri and the boys for a discussion, excusing himself as Ryoku bowed and apologized to Yagiri, though Carol refused. Ryoku warned Carol to apologize or face consequences, which irritated Yagiri. Euphemia, concerned about her sister Theodosia, wondered what she might be doing. She heard a lady's voice behind her, triggering memories of Lane. Ryoku and Carol shared information about their classmate with Yagiri. who wanted to speak directly with Sage Sion about returning to their world. Meanwhile, Tomochika and the other girls, dressed differently, were deep in discussion. Rick's surprise appearance caught their attention. The boys met David, the youngest royal, to test their abilities and later fought demonic creatures. Rick joined the girls in battling demons, where Tomochika's strength impressed everyone. Yagiri also defeated a beast, amazing the boys. Euphemia encountered a little girl named Risley. Lute and Hawakaza sat in a bustling restaurant, sipping their drinks and chatting, curious about the crowd. Lute flagged down a passing waitress to inquire about a festival. The waitress explained that the celebration was due to the sage candidate reaching the 5th level of the Underworld in record time. Meanwhile, the three Oroge nobles discussed Yagiri's remarkable abilities. Suddenly, Ayaka burst in, intent on avenging Ushio's death. The restaurant patrons watched in amazement at the unfolding drama. Sage Sion appeared before Hanakawa, introducing himself and inquiring about Yagiri. Despite Hanakawa's attempts to flee, she was unable to escape his questioning. Later, Sage Sion, Lute, and Hawakaza strategized on how to capture Yagiri. Meanwhile, Yagiri, engrossed in a game, questioned Tomochika about the Underworld invasion. She informed him they were about to start the 6th level and warned him of the challenges ahead, especially with a dark god on the 7th level. Yagiri expressed his desire to meet Sage Sion and inquired about the deaths of the Oroge nobles. Ryoku informed him of Ushio's demise and Ayaka's vow to avenge their death. Sage Sion received a report that the sage candidate had reached the 6th level, and it was only a matter of time before they reached the 7th. To disrupt their progress, Sion decided to intervene. Shortly after, there was a knock on Sion's door. It was one of the sage candidates, requesting an extension on the time limit. Sion agreed to extend the deadline on the condition that he eliminate Yagiri. Tomochika entered the room to find Yagiri engrossed in a game, but he interrupted his play to demonstrate his training in controlling his power, which he deemed necessary for obtaining information from the sage. Feeling targeted, Yagiri sought Tomochika's assistance. Meanwhile, Lute brought Hanakawa to his sister Mana, who was sealed underground without knowing why. Mana wondered if she had wronged her brother to deserve such treatment. Lute had sealed Mana loosely so she could escape whenever she wished, and she detected her brother's scent on Hanakawa. Lute handed Mana the key to her seal, which thrilled her. In another part of the story, Ayaka attacked the king of Manii, demanding he deactivate a seal to weaken a gift. When the king tried to retaliate, Ayaka killed him, believing the seal would be lifted upon his death. Upon reaching Mana's spawn, Lute and Hanakawa were greeted by excited children. Ayaka later informed Riona of the king's death, insisting they continue their fight despite Riona's unhealed hand. Agreeing, Riona faced Ayaka, who unleashed her dragon power to defeat her opponent. Tomochika pondered why Yagiri had been roaming the city, realizing that being targeted without resistance wasn't wise. He decided to let them target him, either without killing them or to identify their identity. He believed Tomochika could spot them easily due to her keen eyesight. While they were discussing, a man positioned on a rooftop aimed to shoot Yagiri, but hesitated, knowing he would face death. Despite his hesitation, he died suddenly before he could pull the trigger, as Yagiri shielded Tomochika from the bullet, sensing they were being watched. Yagiri identified the one tailing him and eliminated the spirit that almost attacked him, as well as the queen of the death god. He then deactivated Anju. Utori researched Yagiri, while Lute apologized to Hanakawa for the extensive detour, surprised by Lute's apology. Lute entrusted Hanakawa with the seal key, designating him as the Lord's representative, ensuring Lady Mana couldn't harm him. Yagiri also eliminated the person who had cloned Anju as a robot. Anju, Yagiri's childhood playmate, was modeled into a robot designed to kill him, but he wished for her eternal rest, unwilling to accept her death, imagining she was merely resting. Ayaka then targeted Yuugo, who replicated himself to confuse her. Later, Tomochika and Yagiri encountered Ayaka's spirit at a location. The sage candidates were remaining only 18 people, and they were ordered to leave the kingdom immediately. David, Yagiri, and Tomochika went ahead to the 6th level of the Underworld. David wanted to see the Underworld by himself. They were 5,097 monsters, and the sage candidate attacked them. Lute told Mana about the dark god Albagarma who passed away. The sage candidate had a get-together meal party, and Tomochika was also at the party, but she left. In the search for Yagiri, Yagiri was in the bush having some thoughts of himself. Then he saw David pass by. He called him, but he wasn't listening. So Yagiri followed him from behind and saved him from almost falling into the pit. The ground started shaking, and there was a crack. Sion appeared at the sage candidate get-together meal party. She ordered the candidate to fight each other until one person is remaining. Suddenly, Yagiri and David fell into the pit. Theodosia found Euphemia just an hour before the trial between sage candidates, where those who hadn't killed would be eliminated. During Sion's address to the candidates, Fukai attempted to use his deadly ability against Sion but failed, resulting in Sion killing him. Meanwhile, Tomochika searched for Yagiri in the forest and heard Rumiko and Giuna calling for help. Yagiri and David continued their descent from the mountain, with Yagiri recalling Asaka's teachings on character. He chose to slow their descent, ensuring they arrived safely at the 7th level of the Underworld. Mana's seal vanished, indicating her brother approved her departure. As Hanakawa prepared to leave, Mana's body began to expand, signaling the birth of the master and trapping Hanakawa and Lute inside her. Lute sacrificed himself to save Hanakawa, who managed to escape. Euphemia recounted her encounter with the sage Lane to Theodisia as they journeyed toward the royal capital in search of Yagiri. Meanwhile, Yagiri was informed about the sage candidate fight. After he ended the call, Hanakawa approached him. Yagiri was surprised to see him and was planning to kill Hanakawa the next time they met. However, Hanakawa directed Yagiri's attention to a pursuer, whom Yagiri promptly dispatched. Hanakawa then offered to help Yagiri return to the 6th level, to which Yagiri agreed. In another scene, Kyoko, a girl with braided hair and glasses, enters a room. Her class was Gunslinger, and she demonstrated her proficiency by firing a shot into the ceiling. Yukamasa, who can understand any language, was shot and fell through the floor, creating holes. Ayaka entered from the opposite door, and Tomochika watched from a tree. Hanakawa led Yagiri to a door that would take them to the 6th level, but Yagiri insisted on Hanakawa accompanying him. Meanwhile, Yukamasa arrived at a small room with a metal door. After failing to open it, he turned to leave, and the door opened on its own. Yagiri and Hanakawa emerged from the door, carrying David, who had been reading a book that prophesied his death in various languages. Unconvinced, David tore out the page, only to be killed by Yagiri upon his arrival. A system message announced Hanakawa's participation in the sage candidate election, indicating that if he tried to escape the selection battle, he would be killed by Sion. Mei was deep in slumber when she was suddenly jolted awake by Arima's scolding words, accusing her of laziness. In a bold move, he whisked away her bed, sending her crashing to the floor. Unfazed, Mei materialized before Arima and Ibukawa. Despite Ibukawa's attempt to assail her, his efforts were futile, and she swiftly ended his life with her extraordinary ability. Arima, bewildered by Mei's powers, questioned their origin. Mei revealed that her powers were bestowed upon her through a mystical connection with the cat god. Without hesitation, she also dispatched Arima, leaving him lifeless. A notification then appeared, announcing the approval of Hanakawa's selection in the sage battle. Driven by her newfound knowledge, Mei sought out Hanakawa. She confronted him while he was accompanied by Yagiri, who was carrying David on his back. Mei launched an assault on Hanakawa, only to be thwarted by Yagiri, who swiftly eliminated the cat that empowered Mei. With her source of power severed, Mei fled, powerless and defeated. During the intense fight, Kyoko used her gun against Ayaka. Tomochika, who had been hiding in a tree, leaped down and encountered Mikachi. After explaining her ability, Mikachi's words left Tomochika feeling defeated even before the battle began. Taking control of Danara's spirit, Mikachi attacked and disrobed Tomochika. Yagiri arrived and covered her with his jacket. Meanwhile, Izaki and Sono engaged in combat, with Sono emerging victorious. However, Sono was suddenly absorbed, prompting Haruto to flee with his secret weapon. A monster manipulates Mikachi to attack Tomochika, but Yagiri kills the monster, leading to Mikachi's death. As Tomochika requested her clothes back, she couldn't shake the guilt over Mikachi's demise. An animation bomb detonated, causing a massive explosion. The ensuing heat and shockwave scattered nanomachines everywhere. Tomochika wondered how Yagiri knew about all this. The second gate was disrupting the laws of physics, making it difficult to locate the trial area. Ayaka transformed into a large dragon, determined to continue her revenge. She needed to confirm that all her targets had been eliminated. However, her search skills had been restricted by the sage. Now transformed, she replicated herself into a large group. 5 survivors from her targets were discovered, and she moved towards them to attack. They all immediately died due to Yagiri's instant death ability. Alpha Omega was detected but remained unrecognized due to an irreversible transformation into a dragon. It seems that the recognition blocking function was suspended. The Next Generation Human Project was created in anticipation of humanity's annihilation by Alpha Omega. To prevent recognition, individuals in this project are equipped with a function that masks their identity from Alpha Omega. Despite this, Ayaka insisted on pursuing her revenge and transformed into a dragon to continue her attack. However, she was warned not to kill Alpha Omega. When Yagiri ordered her to die, Ayaka fell to the ground and her personality unit was lost. Yagiri and his team then abruptly left the scene, only to encounter Sage Sion. Yagiri mistakenly challenged her, unaware of her power, prompting Hanakawa to scold him. Yagiri killed her left ankle. He asked her a question and insisted she answer him. Sage Sion wanted to attack him by stretching her hands towards him, but he killed her hand and warned her unless he killed her by accident, He reminded Snan using an instant death technique to make his heart stop won't work and she would die even before using it. All Yagiri wanted to know was how to get back to the original world. He figured that Sage Snan had the highest chance of knowing since she was the one who brought them here. And he promised to keep picking up pieces of her until she talked. Sage Xian teleported to her comfort zone. She had no single clue of what was happening. She felt she didn't have to say anything if Yagiri was going to kill her. Yachai quickly rushed to Xian's room to see what was wrong. Immediately, Yachai shouted in pain because his hand and feet were killed. Snan teleported back to plead with Yagiri to spare Yachai. Yagiri insisted Snan should answer his questions so she would not attack her anymore. He wanted her to know he could attack her anywhere she goes. He asked her again to show them the way home, but unfortunately, there was currently no way. Yagiri reminded her that Hanakawa was able to go back home when he came to their world. They might have been away while there was still a link then stretching between this world and their world, but there wasn't a link anymore. Then Yagiri asked Xian to tell him the coordinates of their world. They could only go back home if they coordinated and had the energy necessary. Yagiri asked Xian if she had an idea about energy. Xian then gave Yagiri a philosopher's stone that may be enough to get them back home. Yagiri collected it. He wondered if all the sages he had killed had the stone. However, they all had the stone. When they were killed by Yagiri, the stone in their body was less powerful after all. The stone was a source of the sage immortality. Yagiri asked where the other sages were, but Xian had no idea. Yagiri's goal was to gather intel. And why he hated Xian was not enough to kill her. Xian wanted to go check back on Yachai, but she realized she could not teleport. She felt her immune system was reacting to something. And then it turned out to be Mama who had already rounded her leg. Xian teleported, leaving the leg rounded by Mana behind. But still she dropped back to the ground. All Xian abilities has been disabled and she drowned. Robots and floods attacked the royal capital. Rick tried to defend his city and his people, but he realized the sage candidate had broken the seal of the dark god. Bishop Holaris then realized that Mana had been resurrected and she had filled her manifestation upon the earth. Yagiri and his team appeared to Bishop Holaris and Yagiri killed him because he felt Bishop Holaris was going to kill them. Yagiri and his team arrived somewhere in the seat of the Divine King. The seal went round the city and also tried to climb the walls. Mana appeared to Yagiri in person asking if he was the one who will kill her brother. Mana commanded Yagiri to die, but Yagiri commanded her to die and she died. Tamachika wondered what they were going to do next. Then David advised to go to the top of the roof where they entered a boat that took them through the sky. Tamachika transformed into an outfit that can make her fly. Yagiri held Tamachika round her waist and they both flew together. They all landed at the same place. They planned on how to get back to their world. Suddenly they realized Hanakawa was not in their midst. Yagiri assumed he had run away while they were still discussing. Risley arrived and went to Yagiri asking him to marry her. Yagiri rejected her proposal and she felt bad suddenly. Theodosia and Euphemia came to meet him. Yagiri saw Theodosia has found her sister. Then Risley offered Yagiri a philosopher's stone so she could accept her proposal.